What if the most revered Jewish rabbi of our time, a man who spent over a century studying the sacred texts of the Torah and Kabbalah, whispered a secret on his deathbed, a secret that could upend everything we thought we knew about the Messiah? Could one man's final words rewrite the story of faith itself? Welcome to a journey that begins with a mysterious letter, sealed for a year, and ends with a revelation that has sparked debates across the globe. We're diving into the astonishing story of Rabbi Yitzhak Kaduri, whose cryptic message about the Messiah's identity has left scholars, believers, and skeptics grappling with questions that strike at the heart of religion and history. By the end of this video, you'll uncover a perspective on the Messiah that you've likely never considered before, a perspective that might challenge your beliefs, spark new questions, or even change the way you see the scriptures forever. Stay with us because this is a story you won't want to miss. If you're ready to explore this incredible mystery, hit that like button right now, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a video. Let's unravel the truth behind Kaduri's revelation together. Rabbi Yitzhak Kaduri, born in the twilight of the 19th century in Baghdad, Kaduri was no ordinary scholar. His life stretched across more than a century, and by the time he passed in 2006, he was hailed as one of the most revered rabbis of the modern era. His mastery of the Torah, the Talmud, and the esoteric teachings of Kabbalah made him a spiritual giant, a man whose insights were sought by thousands. From his modest home in Jerusalem's Bukharan quarter, Kaduri dispensed blessings and guidance, drawing pilgrims who believed his wisdom bordered on the divine. What could a man of such stature possibly reveal that would send shockwaves through the world of faith? Kaduri's legacy was built on decades of relentless study. His knowledge of Kabbalah, the mystical tradition that seeks to unlock the hidden meanings of Jewish scripture, was unparalleled. Unlike many rabbis who focus solely on legalistic interpretations, Kaduri delved into the spiritual, exploring the cosmic connections between God, humanity, and the universe. His followers spoke of him with awe, recounting tales of his uncanny foresight. Some claimed he predicted political events, like the rise of certain Israeli leaders, while others swore his prayers had healed the sick. By his 108th year, Kaduri was more than a rabbi, he was a living legend. His funeral, attended by an estimated 300,000 mourners, was one of the largest in Israel's history, a testament to his profound impact. Could a man so deeply rooted in Jewish tradition hold a secret that would challenge the very foundations of his faith? Yet Kaduri's life was shrouded in enigma. Despite his public prominence, he was intensely private, often deflecting attention from himself. His teachings were cryptic, filled with allusions to divine mysteries that only the initiated could grasp. He was a paradox, a sage who commanded respect yet guarded his innermost thoughts. Stories circulated that he carried secrets too profound to share openly, truths that could alter the course of religious history. What if one of those secrets was about the Messiah himself? As we step into the final chapter of Kaduri's life, we find ourselves drawn to a moment that would redefine his legacy, not through his teachings, but through a single astonishing act. In January 2006, as Rabbi Kaduri lay in a Jerusalem hospital, his frail body a stark contrast to his towering legacy, the air around him seemed charged with significance. At 108, his health was failing, but his mind remained a fortress of clarity, his eyes still gleaming with the intensity of a man who had glimpsed eternal truths. Surrounded by his most trusted disciples, Kaduri spoke in a voice barely above a whisper, yet each word carried the weight of a lifetime. According to those present, he made a claim that stunned the room. He had met the Messiah, not in a prophetic vision, not in a mystical trance, but in the flesh, a living person walking among them. Who could this figure be? And why would a rabbi of Kaduri's stature make such a bold declaration? The disciples, accustomed to their teacher's cryptic pronouncements, leaned closer, their hearts pounding. In Jewish tradition, the Messiah is the ultimate figure of hope, a leader destined to restore Israel, usher in peace, and fulfill the ancient prophecies of the Torah. For Kaduri to claim he had met this figure was nothing short of revolutionary, yet he offered no details. He didn't name the Messiah or describe their encounter. Instead, he spoke in riddles, hinting at a truth so profound it required preparation to accept. Why was he so guarded, even in his final moments? One disciple later recalled Kaduri's words, "The Messiah is here, but his time is not yet." The statement was tantalizing, raising more questions than answers. This deathbed confession was a turning point. Kaduri's claim wasn't just a personal revelation, it was a challenge to centuries of Jewish expectation. The Messiah, in Jewish thought, is not a divine figure but a human leader, often envisioned as a king or warrior. For Kaduri to suggest he had met this figure in person, without fanfare or public proclamation, was bewildering. Was this the culmination of his life's search for truth, or was he preparing his followers for a reality they weren't ready to face? The disciples pressed for more, but Kaduri's response was unexpected. He would reveal the Messiah's identity, but not in words spoken aloud. Instead, he turned to a piece of paper, setting the stage for a mystery that would captivate the world. In his final days, Rabbi Kaduri performed an act that would etch his name into history. He wrote a letter, not a public declaration or a scholarly treatise, but a single sealed document containing the name of the Messiah he claimed to have met. With a trembling hand, he inscribed a brief sentence in Hebrew, folded the paper, and sealed it with a command that stunned his disciples. The letter was to remain unopened until 1 year after his death. Why the delay? What truth was so explosive that it had to be hidden for a year? Kaduri's instructions were precise, his tone unwavering. He entrusted the letter to his closest followers, who vowed to honor his wishes. The sealed letter became an object of intense fascination. Kaduri's disciples treated it as a sacred relic, storing it in a modest synagogue in Jerusalem. Word of the letter spread like wildfire, first among Kaduri's followers, then to Jewish communities across Israel and beyond. The Israeli press, always eager for stories of religious intrigue, published articles speculating about its contents. Was Kaduri about to confirm a messianic figure? Could the letter point to a living person, or was it a symbolic gesture? What could a single sentence possibly reveal that would demand such secrecy? Online forums buzzed with theories, from the plausible to the fantastical. Some believed Kaduri had foreseen the Messiah's imminent arrival. Others feared the letter would sow division. The year following Kaduri's death in January 2006 was a period of unprecedented anticipation. Jewish scholars debated the letter's significance, while skeptics dismissed it as the act of an aging mystic. Yet even the doubters couldn't ignore the weight of Kaduri's reputation. This was no ordinary rabbi. His every action was deliberate, steeped in the wisdom of a century. By sealing the letter, Kaduri ensured that his final message would resonate far beyond his lifetime. Was this a test of faith, a safeguard against controversy, or a way to prepare the world for a truth too shocking to accept? As the one-year anniversary approached, the world held its breath, waiting for the moment when the letter would finally be opened. On a quiet morning in January 2007, 1 year after Rabbi Kaduri's passing, a small group of his disciples gathered in a Jerusalem synagogue. The atmosphere was electric as they prepared to open the sealed letter. With reverence, they broke the seal and unfolded the paper, their eyes scanning the Hebrew text. The letter contained a single sentence, Yarim Ha'am v'chayak shemo v'torato omdim. Translated, he will raise the people and prove that his word and his law stand. At first, the words seemed like a standard messianic prophecy, open to interpretation. But then, a scholar among them noticed something astonishing. The first letter of each word in the sentence spelled out a name, Yehoshua. In English, that name is Jesus. Could it be true? Had a revered Jewish rabbi named Jesus as the Messiah? The revelation was like a thunderbolt. Yehoshua is a common Hebrew name, but in the context of Kaduri's claim and the messianic expectation, the implication was staggering. For centuries, Jewish tradition has rejected Jesus as the Messiah, awaiting a leader who would restore Israel's political and spiritual glory. Yet here was Kaduri, a titan of Jewish scholarship, seemingly pointing to the very figure revered by Christians. How could a man so devoted to Jewish law arrive at such a conclusion? The disciples were torn. Some saw the letter as a divine revelation, a confirmation of truths hidden in plain sight. Others suspected a misunderstanding, perhaps even a forgery. The news of the letter's contents spread rapidly, igniting a firestorm of reactions. Israeli media, including outlets like Israel Today, published reports about the discovery, while Christian websites hailed it as a miracle. Social media platforms, still emerging in 2007, became battlegrounds for debate. Some called the letter a historic turning point. Others branded it a scandal designed to undermine Jewish faith. What had Kaduri discovered in his century of study that led him to this moment? The letter's cryptic nature only deepened the mystery. Was Yehoshua a clear reference to Jesus of Nazareth, or could it point to another figure with the same name? The ambiguity fueled speculation. But one thing was undeniable. Kaduri's final act had unleashed a revelation that would echo across the globe. As the world grappled with the letter's implications, questions piled upon questions. Why had Kaduri chosen to reveal the Messiah's name in such an enigmatic way? Why seal it for a year, knowing the controversy it would unleash? Some speculated that he feared the consequences of his revelation. In a world where religious divisions run deep, naming Jesus as the Messiah could fracture his legacy and alienate his followers. Was Kaduri protecting his community, or was he ensuring the truth would emerge when the time was right? Others wondered if the letter had been influenced by external forces. Could it have been altered after his death, manipulated to serve a Christian agenda? The mystery was compounded by Kaduri's own reticence. Unlike other rabbis who spoke boldly about messianic hopes, Kaduri was guarded, even in his final days. His disciples recalled private moments when he hinted at truths too weighty to share openly. One follower claimed Kaduri had whispered, "The Messiah walks among us, but we are blind to his presence." What did he mean by this? Was he preparing his people for a seismic shift in understanding, or was he wrestling with a truth he himself struggled to accept? Another disciple recalled a late-night conversation where Kaduri spoke of a figure who fulfills the prophecies in ways we never expected. These fragments of testimony only deepened the enigma. The letter's implications were profound. If Kaduri, a man whose life was a testament to Jewish wisdom, believed Jesus was the Messiah, it raised uncomfortable questions. Who stood to gain from keeping the secret buried? Some pointed to religious authorities who might fear the letter's impact on Jewish identity. Others suggested Christian groups could have exaggerated the story to bolster their faith. As speculation swirled, one thing was clear. Kaduri's letter had opened a Pandora's box. What forces were at play to keep this revelation from reshaping history? The stage was now set for a clash of beliefs, one that would unfold in the reactions and controversies to come. When the contents of Rabbi Yitzhak Kaduri's sealed letter were revealed in January 2007, the Jewish world was thrown into chaos. The idea that a revered rabbi, whose life was a testament to Orthodox Judaism, had seemingly named Jesus, Yehoshua, as the Messiah was nothing short of unthinkable. In synagogues across Israel, from the ultra-Orthodox enclaves of Bnei Brak to the progressive communities of Tel Aviv, rabbis and scholars reacted with a mixture of shock, disbelief, and outrage. For centuries, Jewish tradition has held that the Messiah will be a human leader, a descendant of King David, who will restore Israel's sovereignty and usher in an era of peace. Jesus, a figure central to Christianity but rejected by Judaism as the Messiah, did not fit this mold. How could a rabbi of Kaduri's stature, a guardian of Jewish law, point to a figure so at odds with his faith? The backlash was swift and fierce. Leading rabbis issued statements condemning the letter as a misunderstanding at best, a deliberate fabrication at worst. In Jerusalem, a prominent Orthodox leader declared, "This cannot be the work of Rabbi Kaduri. It contradicts everything he stood for." Community forums buzzed with heated debates, with some calling the revelation a betrayal of Jewish identity. The Israeli newspaper Haaretz published an op-ed questioning the letter's authenticity, arguing that Kaduri's lifelong devotion to Torah made such a claim implausible. Why did this single sentence ignite such a firestorm? The answer lies in the stakes. If Kaduri's letter was genuine, it challenged the very foundation of Jewish messianic expectation, suggesting that the figure they had awaited for millennia might already have come and been rejected. The reaction wasn't just theological, it was deeply emotional. For many Jews, the letter felt like an assault on their heritage, a suggestion that their faith had missed a critical truth. What was it about this revelation that struck such a raw nerve? The Jewish community's response revealed a deeper tension, the fear that a revered figure's words could be twisted to undermine their beliefs. As the debate raged, one question loomed large. Was the letter truly Kaduri's, or had it been manipulated to serve an agenda? At the forefront of the opposition stood Rabbi Kaduri's own family, led by his son, Rabbi David Kaduri. A respected figure in his own right, David was quick to dismiss the letter as a fabrication. In a public statement issued shortly after the revelation, he declared, "My father never spoke of Jesus as the Messiah. This letter is a forgery, a shameful attempt to tarnish his legacy." David's words carried weight, as he had been close to his father in his final years, overseeing his care and teachings. He argued that the letter's contents were inconsistent with Kaduri's lifelong commitment to Orthodox Judaism, which explicitly rejects Christian claims about Jesus. If the letter was fake, who could have created it and why? The family's denial went beyond mere words. They launched an investigation into the letter's origins, questioning the disciples who had opened it. David pointed to discrepancies in the handwriting, suggesting it didn't match his father's. He also criticized the timing of the revelation, noting that the one-year delay allowed for potential tampering. "My father was a man of precision," David said in an interview with Yedioth Ahronoth. "If he wanted to name the Messiah, he would have done so openly, not in a cryptic note." But if the letter was a forgery, why did it resonate so deeply with some of Kaduri's followers? The family's stance fueled speculation that the letter was a deliberate attempt to sow discord, perhaps orchestrated by Christian groups eager to claim Kaduri's endorsement. David's rejection wasn't just a defense of his father's legacy. It was a rallying cry for the Jewish community. He urged synagogues to focus on Kaduri's teachings, not the controversy. Yet his efforts to quell the debate only intensified it. Some accused the family of suppressing the truth to protect their status within Orthodoxy. Could the family's denial be driven by fear of what the letter might mean? As the controversy grew, the divide between skeptics and believers widened, setting the stage for a surprising counter-narrative from an unexpected source, Kaduri's own disciples. While the Jewish establishment and Kaduri's family dismissed the letter, a small but vocal group of his disciples told a different story. These followers, who had studied under Kaduri for decades, claimed that the letter was not only genuine, but reflected private conversations they had witnessed in his final years. According to one disciple, speaking anonymously to Israel Today, Kaduri had begun to speak of the Messiah in ways that echoed Christian descriptions of Jesus. "He told us to look beyond tradition," the disciple recalled. "He said the Messiah had already come, suffered, and would return in glory." Could Kaduri, a master of Jewish mysticism, have seen something in the scriptures that others missed? These accounts were explosive. The disciples described late-night discussions in Kaduri's modest apartment, where he hinted at a figure who fulfilled ancient prophecies in unexpected ways. One follower claimed Kaduri had encouraged them to study texts outside the traditional Jewish canon, including passages from the New Testament. He never called him Jesus outright, another disciple told a Christian radio program, but he spoke of a man who was despised, rejected, and pierced for the sins of others. These words, strikingly similar to Isaiah 53, sent chills through those who heard them. Why would a rabbi of Kaduri's stature point his students toward Christian scriptures? The disciples' testimonies were not without risk. By speaking out, they faced ostracism from their communities, with some labeled as heretics. Yet they insisted they were honoring Kaduri's wishes. One disciple produced a handwritten note, allegedly from Kaduri, urging followers to seek the truth even if it leads you to unfamiliar paths. Was this note another piece of the puzzle, or a fabrication to bolster their claims? The disciples' accounts added a layer of intrigue, suggesting that Kaduri's revelation was not a spur-of-the-moment act, but the culmination of years of reflection. Their words kept the controversy alive, forcing the world to confront an uncomfortable question. What if Kaduri was right? As the debate over the letter intensified, conspiracy theories began to surface, each more elaborate than the last. One theory popular among Orthodox Jews posited that the letter had been forged by Christian missionaries seeking to convert Jews. They pointed to the timing of the revelation, coinciding with a rise in evangelical outreach in Israel, as evidence of a coordinated effort. "This is not Kaduri's voice," a rabbi in Haifa declared at a public forum. "This is the work of those who want to blur the lines between our faiths." But if the letter was a Christian plot, how had it been executed so convincingly? The theory struggled to explain the disciples' testimonies in the letter's cryptic style, which mirrored Kaduri's enigmatic teachings. On the other side, some Christians speculated that the Jewish establishment was suppressing the letter to protect its authority. They argued that Kaduri's revelation threatened the theological status quo, prompting a cover-up. Online forums buzzed with claims that the original letter had been destroyed or altered, with only a sanitized version released to the public. Who stood to gain from bearing Kaduri's message? These theories were fueled by the lack of transparency around the letter's handling. Unlike a public document, it had been opened in a private setting with no independent verification of its contents. The conspiracy theories, while speculative, highlighted a deeper truth. The letter had touched a nerve. Its ambiguity allowed for endless interpretation, turning it into a Rorschach test for religious beliefs. Some saw it as a divine sign, others as a dangerous lie. What was it about this revelation that made it so polarizing? The answer lay in its potential to bridge or divide two of the world's great faiths. As the theories multiplied, they underscored a critical question. Was the letter a genuine cry for truth, or a carefully crafted spark meant to ignite chaos? The furor over Kaduri's letter did more than spark debate. It forced the world to grapple with questions that transcended the document itself. If the letter was authentic, what did it mean for Jewish identity? For 2,000 years, Jews have awaited a Messiah who would fulfill specific prophecies, none of which, in their view, align with Jesus. Kaduri's revelation, if true, suggested that those prophecies had been misunderstood or fulfilled in ways the Jewish world had overlooked. Could a single rabbi's words rewrite the narrative of an entire faith? For Christians, the letter was a potential vindication, a sign that even a Jewish sage could recognize Jesus as the Messiah. Yet it also raised questions about how to interpret Kaduri's intent. Was he endorsing Christianity, or was he pointing to a broader, universal truth? What did Kaduri see in his final days that led him to risk his legacy? The controversy became a mirror, reflecting the hopes and fears of both communities. It challenged Jews to reconsider their messianic expectations and Christians to reflect on the Jewish roots of their faith. Perhaps the most profound question was why the letter mattered at all. In an age of skepticism, where religious claims are often dismissed, Kaduri's revelation struck a chord because it came from a man of unimpeachable credibility. His life was a bridge between ancient prophecy and modern reality, making his words impossible to ignore. If Kaduri's letter was a glimpse of truth, what would it mean for the world today? As the controversy raged, it set the stage for a deeper exploration of the letter's implications, from the prophecies it invoked to the possibility that it heralded a new chapter in human history. The revelation of Rabbi Yitzhak Kaduri's letter, pointing to Yehoshua, Jesus, as the Messiah, is far more than a historical curiosity. It's a seismic event with the potential to reshape religious thought. If a rabbi of Kaduri's stature, whose century-long study of Jewish scripture made him a titan of faith, believed that Jesus fulfilled the role of the Messiah, it challenges the very framework of Jewish messianic expectation. For over 2,000 years, Jewish tradition has awaited a Messiah who would be a political and spiritual leader, restoring Israel's glory and establishing a kingdom of peace. Jesus, with his humble life and death on a cross, has long been dismissed by Jewish scholars as failing to meet these criteria. What if Kaduri's letter suggests that the Jewish world has misunderstood its own prophecies? This question strikes at the heart of why the letter matters. It's not just about one rabbi's opinion, it's about the possibility that a foundational belief, one that has defined Jewish identity through centuries of exile, persecution, and hope, might need re-examination. The letter forces us to confront uncomfortable truths. Could the Messiah have already come, unrecognized by those who awaited him most? Kaduri's revelation, if true, implies that the figure Jews have been searching for was not a warrior king, but a suffering servant, a concept that aligns with certain biblical passages but defies traditional expectations. How could such a truth have been overlooked for so long? Beyond its theological weight, the letter's significance lies in its timing. In an era of global uncertainty, where religious divisions often fuel conflict, Kaduri's message feels like a call to bridge two faiths. It challenges Jews to reconsider their rejection of Jesus, and Christians to explore the Jewish roots of their beliefs. Could this be the moment when ancient prophecies and modern realities converge? The letter's impact extends beyond religious circles, touching anyone who grapples with questions of truth, faith, and destiny. It's a story that demands we ask, what does it mean to seek the Messiah in today's world? To understand the weight of Kaduri's revelation, we must turn to the ancient prophecies that have shaped Jewish and Christian expectations of the Messiah. These texts, written centuries before Kaduri's time, offer clues that some believe point directly to Jesus. One of the most striking is Isaiah 53, a passage known as the suffering servant. It describes a figure despised and rejected by mankind, a man of suffering and familiar with pain, who is pierced for our transgressions and whose wounds bring healing. Does this sound like the triumphant King Jews expected, or does it paint a different picture, one that eerily matches the life of Jesus? In Jewish tradition, Isaiah 53 is often interpreted as referring to the nation of Israel, but Kaduri's letter raises the possibility that he saw it as describing an individual, perhaps Yehoshua. Another prophecy, Zechariah 12:10, speaks of a moment when God says, "They will look on me, the one they have pierced, and they will mourn for him as one mourns for an only child." This image of a pierced figure, mourned by those who rejected him, is central to Christian theology, but less emphasized in Jewish readings, where it's often seen as metaphorical. Why would a rabbi like Kaduri, steeped in these texts, point to a name that aligns with this prophecy? The passage's haunting imagery suggests a Messiah who suffers, not conquers, an idea that could explain Kaduri's cryptic revelation. Then there's Daniel 9:25-26, which predicts the arrival of an anointed one before the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 CE. The timeline is precise. The Messiah must come before Jerusalem's temple falls. Jesus lived and died just before this event, a fact that Christians cite as evidence of his messianic role. Jewish scholars, however, argue that the anointed one could refer to another figure, like a high priest or king. But what if Kaduri, with his unparalleled knowledge, saw a connection others missed? These prophecies, when viewed through the lens of Kaduri's letter, take on new urgency, inviting us to ask, are we reading the scriptures correctly, or have we been blind to their true meaning? Kaduri's revelation doesn't exist in a vacuum. It arrives at a moment when many believe the world is teetering on the edge of profound change. Both Jewish and Christian traditions speak of an end times, a period when the Messiah will return or appear, bringing judgment and redemption. In the book of Revelation 1:7, a Christian text, it is written, "Behold, he is coming with the clouds, and every eye will see him, even those who pierced him." This passage suggests that before the Messiah's return, those who rejected him, including the Jewish people, will recognize his true identity. Could Kaduri's letter be a harbinger of this moment, a sign that the end times are closer than we think? In Jewish tradition, the end times are marked by the arrival of the Messiah, who will rebuild the temple and restore Israel. Some modern Jewish thinkers, like those in the Shabbat movement, believe we are already in an era of messianic potential, where signs of redemption are emerging. Kaduri himself was known for his interest in eschatology, the study of end-time events. His followers often recalled his cryptic warnings about a coming Great Awakening. What if Kaduri's letter was not just a revelation, but a warning, a call to prepare for a divine reckoning? The idea of the end times resonates beyond religious circles. In a world grappling with climate crises, political upheaval, and technological transformation, many sense that humanity stands at a crossroads. Kaduri's letter, with its suggestion that the Messiah may have already come, feels like a wake-up call. Are we living in the shadow of prophecy, unaware of the signs unfolding around us? By linking his revelation to ancient texts, Kaduri invites us to consider whether history is moving toward a climax, one that demands we re-examine our beliefs and actions. Kaduri's letter is not a definitive answer. It's an invitation to seek the truth for ourselves. The questions it raises about the Messiah, prophecy, and faith are too profound to be settled by a single document. Instead, they call for personal exploration, a journey into the scriptures that shaped Kaduri's life. Start with Isaiah 53. Read the words of the suffering servant and ask, who does this describe? Move to Zechariah 12:10. Consider the image of a pierced figure and ponder. What does it mean for God to be mourned? Then turn to Daniel 9:25-26. Reflect on the timeline of the Anointed One and question, could the Messiah have come before the temple's fall? These texts are not just ancient relics, they are living documents that continue to spark debate. Jewish and Christian scholars have wrestled with their meanings for centuries, and Kaduri's letter adds a new layer to the conversation. Why do these passages seem to point to a figure so different from the Messiah we expect? The answers lie not in accepting one interpretation over another, but in engaging with the texts ourselves. Kaduri, a scholar to his core, would likely have urged his followers to study, question, and seek. His letter is a challenge. Don't take anyone's word for it. Dive into the scriptures and discover the truth for yourself. This call to exploration extends beyond religious boundaries. Whether you're Jewish, Christian, or simply curious, Kaduri's story invites you to grapple with questions of meaning and purpose. What would it mean to find the Messiah in your own life? By encouraging personal study, Kaduri's revelation becomes a catalyst for dialogue, a way to bridge divides through shared inquiry. The scriptures are a treasure trove of wisdom, waiting for those willing to seek. Kaduri's letter is not just a relic of 2007, it speaks to our world today. In an age of polarization, where religious and cultural divides often seem insurmountable, the idea that a Jewish rabbi could point to Jesus as the Messiah is a radical call for unity. It suggests that the truths we seek might transcend the boundaries we've built, uniting faith in a shared quest for understanding. What would happen if Jews and Christians sat down to read Isaiah 53 together, not to argue, but to listen? Kaduri's revelation, whether true or not, challenges us to approach faith with humility and openness. The letter also raises questions about how we define the Messiah in the 21st century. Is the Messiah a literal figure, a king who will restore a nation, or a symbol of hope in a fractured world? Kaduri's story forces us to confront these questions, not just as believers, but as global citizens. In a time when humanity faces existential challenges, from environmental collapse to social injustice, the idea of a Messiah who suffers with us, as described in Isaiah 53, feels strikingly relevant. Could Kaduri's letter be a reminder that redemption begins with recognizing our shared humanity? Ultimately, the letter's modern implications lie in its power to inspire. It's a story of one man's courage to speak a truth he believed, even at the risk of controversy. It's a call to look beyond dogma and seek the divine in unexpected places. If Kaduri was right, what does that mean for us today? As we move forward, his revelation invites us to ask, how will we respond to the possibility that the Messiah, whether Jesus or another figure, is closer than we think? The answer lies not in the letter itself, but in the conversations, reflections, and actions it inspires. Rabbi Yitzhak Kaduri's letter is more than a historical footnote. It's a spark that ignites curiosity and invites us to question what we believe about the Messiah. Whether you see it as a divine clue or a provocative puzzle, one thing is clear. This story challenges us to seek truth with open hearts. What do you think? Could Kaduri's revelation hold the key to understanding the Messiah? Or is it just a controversy that will fade with time? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I can't wait to hear what you think. If this story has sparked your curiosity, give this video a thumbs up, share it with friends who love diving into biblical mysteries, and subscribe with the bell icon to catch our next exploration of faith and history. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Until next time, keep seeking the truth, and we'll see you in the next video.